All right, welcome to 5-6 video 2, where we're going to take equations that are written in slope-intercept form, or that we need to write in slope-intercept form, and go ahead and graph them. So let's look at number 6. Remember, slope-intercept form, we always start off by writing it, y equals mx plus b. And I'm going to look right here. Do I have an m and a b value? Is this equation written in this form? It is. So my slope is 2, and my y-intercept is -4. So I'm going to start off by graphing that specific point, -4, for my y-intercept. And then my slope is 2, which means I'm going to rise 2, run 1. I can always turn my slope into a fraction if it helps me. When it's an integer, you can always put it over 1. So rise 2, run 1, rise 2, run 1. Now, once I finish out the right side of my y-intercept, I can go back to the left. I use my straight line tool, and I have arrows on either end. And there's my line. I have a positive slope, and I have a positive line. Let's look at number 7. Remember, I want this in slope-intercept form. That's the only way I can identify my slope and y-intercept. But if I look here, this equation is not in slope-intercept form. So I've got to use some algebra skills and get the y all by itself. I got to move this 2x. So let's see. If I have a positive 2x here, I can get it to 0 by subtracting 2x. Whatever I do to the left side, I've got to keep my equation balanced and do to my right. So those make 0 pairs. I'm left with y equals, to stay true to mx plus b form, I'm going to sneak my -2x in front of my positive 1. And now I have an equation in slope-intercept form. I can identify my slope as -2, and my y-intercept is 1. All right, let's go ahead and graph that specific y-intercept. And again, my slope is -2, which means I'm going to go down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1. And I'll continue filling out my graph. When I'm done on the right side, I can go up to the left. Straight line, arrows on either end. I can always double check myself and say, well, I have a negative slope. Do I have a negative line? I do. All right, let's go ahead down to number 8. Number 8, so again, slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Looks like I'm missing some things. Looks like I just simply have y equals -2. Well, if there are numbers or values missing in math, they typically mean that there's a 0 involved. So the only way that x can vanish is if it's multiplied by 0. So my slope has to be 0. And then plus -2 or -2. So now I can write that in, I can pull out the slope as 0, and my y-intercept is -2. And I can go ahead and graph -2. My slope is 0, which means I'm going to rise 0, run 1. Which means I have a horizontal line. And I'll draw a straight line with arrows on either end. All right, last one on this page. Again, slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. This looks like it falls pretty true to form, except I don't have a b value. Well, what we learned in number 8 is, again, if I don't have a value, I probably have a 0. So my slope is -2/3, and my y-intercept is 0. All right, so I'm going to start off at my origin, which is 0, and my slope is -2/3, down 2, right 3, down 2, over 3, down 2, over 3. And again, I have a negative line with a negative slope. Always double check that. All right, so there's graphing lines in slope-intercept form. The last page of notes is a word problem. And when we have word problems, we have word answers, word description. So we'll practice that. We have a problem about To rent a van, a moving company charges $30 plus 50 cents per mile. The cost as a function of number of miles driven is shown in the graph. So let's look at this graph. I have moving van costs. On my X, I have distance driven in miles. So that means X is represented by miles. And on my Y, I have the total cost measured in dollars. So my Y is my total cost. So let's go ahead and take a look at our problems. So number 1 says, write an equation that represents the cost as a function of the number of miles. All right, so my cost, again, is Y, and it's going to be in slope-intercept form. Cost is 50 cents per mile plus the $30 initial fee. So 50 cents, or 0.50 per mile, X is represented by miles, plus $30. Notice, if I look at my Y, or if I look at my equation and identify my slope and my Y-intercept, I can see my Y-intercept on my graph being 30. So what does that mean? Well, my slope first is 50 cents. 50 cents. So that's actually the price per mile driven. And then my B, or my Y-intercept, is 30, which is my initial cost or fee to even rent the van. Now, we're asked to find the cost of the van if we drive it 150 miles. So I'm going to use my equation. I'll copy it down. And I have to figure out, where do I plug in 150? Do I plug it in for X or Y? Well, back up to my graph. X is the number of miles. So I'm going to plug it in for X. Using order of operations, I'll multiply. So I should have 75 plus 30, and Y equals 105. Now, when I have a word problem, I should have a word answer. So the total cost is $105. Make sure you have that label. All right, so there's section 5, 6 notes.